Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lundgren.
Welcome to the Rangers Journal.
Evening and welcome to the Rangers Journal. Tonight we are bringing you a tactical episode. So the plan for tonight is we're going to take a look into primarily the Celtic games, but I think Arran and I were talking about this pre-show, and I think it's fair to say that actually, although the issues are amplified in the Celtic game, because obviously they're a stronger opponent, we do tend to see them through some of the other games as well. So this will give us an idea of where we think the pain points are and what we think we need to focus on for the rest of this season. I know it's very easy to say, we need 7 new players. It's not going to be an option till the summer, let's be honest. So although that's the ideal scenario, and we see sign a team of, Brian Laudrup and Gazas, then until then, we're going to hate muddle through with what we've got. So we want to dig into that a little bit. Got a full house with me today. So first, Doug, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Can't complain. Well, that's not true. I can complain a lot, as I'm sure we will do throughout this evening, but that's all part of the fun, so glad to be here for it.
So we're Rangers fans, of course we can complain. Just want to say as well, Doug, thank you for the hard work put into the slides. People will see them as we go, but as always, much appreciated. Next up, we've got Dylan, our man with the positioning and the tactics. How's you tonight, Dylan?
Good lads. Hopefully give the guys some to think about and to see where it went wrong in these 2 games against Celtic. So hopefully we can show at least our ideas on it and why it went wrong, and hopefully they get something for it. So
and I always think it's really interesting because I know when I do these shows with you guys, I mean, I've said to you before, I'm the host, you guys are the experts, and I always find it really interesting that we kind of do these videos and we talk about things and then you can actually see it in the games as well. So I always think that's quite a good experience. And last, certainly not least, but potentially that ugly that you kind of use a camera, who knows? Arran, how you doing, mate?
Aye, I'm no bad, mate, yourself.
Aye, nae bad. Keep saying it, but we'll hate to get you a camera, mate, so we can get you on the screen as well. Hate to get
definitely.
you up in lights with the rest of the guys, eh?
Aye.
So, without further ado, we'll get the business side out the way. Pod is obviously sponsored by the Bluebells Bar in Lanzarote, really good Rangers pub. I can't say I've been personally yet, but a couple of the guys from the pod have actually been out there and they can't speak highly enough of the bar itself, the way they were looked after, all that good stuff. So any bears over there, get yourself along to the Bluebells Bar. Matches on game day. I think they even show our podcast occasionally, so there's a reason for you if nothing else. If you haven't already and you're watching tonight, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Bring you all sorts of Rangers content. Just now we're doing tactics. We have general podcasts. I believe later on we've got guys recording a scouting episode to go out. So it all happens here. We cater to all your needs, whatever that you are after. So let's delve into it. First up, we are going to talk about videos. Now, they're only wee short clips. There's a couple of kind of moments of play here. And I think when you see them, certainly when I watch them first off, it's something that you see quite a lot in games. Dylan's going to talk us through it. And then basically we're going to interrogate Dylan to kind of defend what he's saying. So let's go with clip 1. So this is where we're playing it on the wing. What I'll do, Dylan, I'll let it run through once. I'll take it back and then we can pause it anywhere you want. So it's that ball up to the winger and then slowly works its way back to the defence. As I said, something that we have seen on a number of occasions from the side. Okay, so that's us. Let me run it back. Dylan, shout out when you want me to pause it if you're looking to make a point, and just literally talk us through this video, why you think it's an example of something that either we're doing wrong or potentially could do better.
I think here, Dave, just to point out, right, Scott Wilson's come inside and dropped it back to Raskin. Pause it there. He then, for me, he reverts to his positioning. He goes back out wide, almost on the same, occupying the same space as Dujon Sterling. I think if he just stays in there, stays high next to Nadiri, then Sterling can go and attack the back line there. As it develops, it goes back. But my problem here is it's not really sort of a build-up problem. My problem here is like the movement off the ball. I don't know why Raskin's back there. For me, he doesn't have to be there. Go and be as high as Diamandi is. Go and play in that pocket that Scott Wilson's just left. Allow that to be a centre-half, because we've got another centre-half here who's not in the picture, who's doing nothing. So again, that's where part of my problem comes into it. I don't think it has to be Raskin there. You can see the amount of bodies that Celtic's got in the middle of that park. And then as it goes wide again, as it breaks wide, we just sort of look for, our strikers are looking for the cross or waiting on that ball coming in. Very predictable, very easy to defend again. So play it out again, Dave, sorry.
Okay.
So it goes up the line. Again, there's no runs for Diamandi to go in and break the lines. And then pause here. So you'll see Nadiri now comes into this big hole here. Which is I'm fine with that, good movement. He's dragging defenders. But for me, there has to be another reaction to his movement doing that. For me, I would expect Diamandi or Scott Wilson to then make the run into where he left. That doesn't happen. So it just comes down again. It's just a bounce pass back to the Giga or Fernandez, and then we just try and recycle it again. So there's just no really... It feels like there's no intent or any purpose about what we're doing there. It's just sort of find an easy spare man and keep the ball until we can try and force something to happen. And that's what my problem is. Although I'll caveat that by saying I think that in the first 10 minutes in this game, Rangers are really good. There was a few patterns of play that worked really well. But this in particular is what we see too often. It's what we see against the lower teams in the league. And that's why we're so easy to defend against. There's nobody running from the midfield, breaking lines. There's nobody running from deep. And when our wide players are wide, they tend to stay there and just put in crosses. Our strikers stay high, or when they do drop, nobody's taking up their space. So that's my gripe with it in this particular video, Dave.
And I just wanted to touch on that. You can see this big kind of box, if you will. So you've got, I think it's Scott Wilson, the Celtic player, and then you come into the middle where you've got Nadiri, and that there is nothing happening out there. And I can't help but think if this was on the left-hand side, that's where you see Terry Romans making a run. 15, 20 times a game. He's always driving into that space.
Dave, sorry to cut you off here. You've also got, though, Mikey Moore, who comes in off that side a lot more than Scott Wilson does to allow Romans that space to go in there. So, again, but there's nothing saying that Dujon Sterling can go on the inside. There's no reason why it has to be overlapping Scott Wilson. He can also come inside and play, or Diamandi can vacate the space, push Raskin up one. Look at our two centre-halves here. They're 10 yards apart, and they're not affecting anything. Giga could be where Raskin is. Raskin could be where Dio is, and Dio could be playing in between Scott Wilson and Chermiti, and on that sort of, and giving Scale something to think about. Do I go in there? Do I stay out wide? But again, it's just too easy.
Can I jump in for a wee second?
Question. Yeah, go on.
Just for my edification, what happens just after this? Remind me in the video, just after this point.
So I think basically it's just this reshape and can it go again, isn't it?
Can you pop it back to where it was? To me, there's such an obvious line of play here. Right. See if that ball gets back to, I can't quite tell who the deepest, well, in fact, it doesn't really matter, either of the centre backs.
Yeah.
If you've a quick winger where Olsen is, he should be making the run, a hard run into that box. Because if you look, there is a massive gap. If you can draw a line from, you can pick whichever centre back you want right through. There's a box of Celtic players there, and you could play one pass, goes through their entire team. If you've got a winger who's aggressive and runs into the edge of the box, I'm sitting there pointing at my own screen as if people can see. But hopefully people can understand what I'm getting at. Like I say, Alston, who's up there beside the linesman, if he makes an aggressive diagonal run to the edge of towards the edge of the box, either centre back who can get this ball, and if they look up, They don't need to do anything. One really good pass splits that entire team apart, and then Olsen or whoever the winger would be, it's in for a shot and goal at the very least. But if not, then hopefully, obviously, your attackers can spin as well. But one pass and you can completely take out that team and have someone with a shot and goal. But they don't do that, as you saw. The Celtic players come in, and because we're labouring the ball about, and this is one of the things that annoys me, is that we don't play quick enough. If you had really on the ball players who were really quick and ideally have already got an idea of what's ahead of them, one pass and you've got a shot on goal from that.
So I guess just to turn that into a question then, Dylan, do you think that is a symptom of a lack of confidence in Skov Olsen to make that run? Or do you think it's more coached that, I mean, let's be honest, right? There is a line there, but it is still a risky pass. You run the risk of it being cut out. So do you think that's a coaching thing to keep possession? Or do you think it's a symptom of Skov Olsen being low on form and confidence?
I think it's a little bit of both, Dave. I don't expect it just to happen from Skov Olsen here, is what my point is. When you see it, like Skov Olsen is here, right? He's giving you width. His same line, like I said, is Dujon Sterling. Now, if Skov Olsen makes that run, that's fine. But Diamandi can make the run. Chinmiti can make the run because when Diamandi drops in, he can run off the back of it. So there's a number of players here that can go and affect that. None of them do. Now, obviously, the obvious option is Skov Olsen. If you're Driga who's getting the ball, can he put the onus on Skov Olsen to fire the ball in there to make him go and take that run? Possibly. But again, that's where the confidence thing comes in. I think, though, if it's coached the way, and I think Daniel's a really good coach, and I think that he's more than capable, obviously more than any of us. So it's not like I'm critiquing him, but I think if you coach that enough, that just starts to happen second nature. And you see, the confidence starts to not become as big a part as it is here. And I think you see that with examples like Motherwell and the way they play. It's not like they bought the players full of confidence. Just the managers repeated it that many times that they know it's second nature. They know what's going to happen, where the players are going to be. So they've got the confidence to then go and execute it. And I don't know, in this case, like I said, I don't just blame Skov Olsen for it, although he has the obvious run. It could come from a number of players. Even the Dairy could come short and spin in there, and the pass could go up. So I don't just blame one player for it, but I know where Dill's coming from because he has the obvious run. He was involved in the build-up. He's now took back to his normal position. He can then make that diagonal run with a straight ball. But again, I think it's something that I don't even realise if our players realise this in the game. Like, that's a great opportunity to go and really cut through them. But I think it comes more with coaching.
Can I come in for a second? See, if you start at where the clip starts from, you see because there was a quote from one of Skov Olsen's managers earlier on this week saying that he likes to be out wide all the time, and he doesn't really he likes to get the ball out wide and then dribble inside, whereas it's not like the movement. He doesn't like to move in without the ball. And you've seen that when Sterling had the ball in the wing, and then Skov Olsen went and smothered the space. And then, as you said, when the centre-backs have got it, Skov Olsen doesn't want to make that driving diagonal run without the ball. Like, he'll receive the ball in the wing, then dribble in the middle. And I think that's a big problem. But it's probably just that what he's reverting back to what he's been doing his whole career, where he needs to kind of...
he has to have the ball at his feet to make a difference in the game.
Like you see it with like Robin is like prime example, always dribbling inside rather than making the run. Like Mueller, for example, for Bayern, he would make the run from wide in and then receive it on the inside. But Robin would receive it wide and then dribble in and then hit a shot or whatever. I think it's just player getting used to the system or trying to play a different way than what they've done their whole career, kind of thing.
I heard a rumour we're buying Miller, so we might be able to solve that.
Yeah, I was going to say, just add a disclaimer there. We are not comparing Skov Olsen to either Mueller or Arjen Robben. Dylan, I want to come to you one from the comments, actually, and see what you make of this. So Doddington's kind of called out that he feels Olsen's where he should be in this, and actually the midfielders could be doing more in this. Would you agree with that statement, or
I
do you
mean,
think that
that's
actually, you'd be expecting Olsen to do different?
that's where sort of part of my that's where it comes out to the coach for me. So we can all look at it and interpret it in our own ways, right? Do I think Scott Wilson should do more? Yes, but I also think Diamande should do more. He's standing in an area of space. He's not affecting the game. He's not looking to get on the ball. He's not looking to stretch the back line. So yes, Diamande should be doing more. Chermiti and Nadiri, they could go and do more as well. Right here in this screenshot here, if that ball's popped back to Raskin, Dujon Sterling's got acres of room to run into, but it doesn't happen quick enough. Scott Wilson goes back out wide. When he's out wide, he's good with the ball at his feet. We saw that with the Chermiti's goal. We saw it with the goal with the overhead kick. We saw it for the Hearts goal as well. That he set up with the wee cross. Really, really good at him. So that's where he thinks he's going to make a difference. But when he vacates that area, someone has to go and take that mantle and go and play in that area, or else it just becomes far too easy. So I do agree with the comment. I think Scott Wilson, he's a winger, he should be out wide. Doesn't mean he has to be there all the time, but like I said, he's dropped in here to create the space out wide, out wide for Sterling. It doesn't come off, so he goes back to where he's supposed to be on the pitch. I'm then looking probably, if I'm being honest, for Diamande to make a sort of a late run in there and go and stretch it. And I think you see Celtic centre mids do that. You see Hatate and you see whether it's Engels or McKibben or whoever it's playing Negrin running in between your sort of their winger and their striker, and we don't know, does their centre mids go with them, or do we pass them on to a centre back or a full back? And that's what makes it difficult. Rangers in this instance make it far too easy to defend.
Okay, thanks, Dylan. And what we're going to do next, we'll move on to clip 2. Again, I will play it once all the way through. Feel free to talk as we're going, and then we'll take it back. We can pause it wherever you want to highlight. So let's go for number 2.
So when it goes back to the start again, Dave, just before the ball goes to Giga, so just as it goes back to Giga before it zooms in on him, we'll try and get the sort of layout of the pitch. So just here, pause it. Yep. Right, now for me, I don't think any of centre midfielders here, is that Scott Wilson inside? I'm unsure about who the players are because of the image quality.
Raskin's outside the centre circle, I think, and it's Dujon Sterling out wide, and then further up, Scott Wilson, I think.
Scott Wilson, right. So you've got Raskin here and Diamande, you've only got 2 centre mids against Celtic's 3, right? And not one of them are shown for the ball. Now you can see he's playing in behind the 2 centre players, like in a good wee pocket of space, but there's no way that he's going to receive that pass. So for me, I want him sort of on the kick-off spot, trying to receive the ball in the half turn and play out wide or go and release him. As the ball travels now, we didn't see the start of this clip. It's out on the left-hand side with Mikey Moore. It gets worked back into this position, so there's plenty of time for these players to get back into the position that I'm expecting them to get into, whether it be Diamande, whether it be Raskin. And then because you don't do it quick enough, don't give a centre-half an option, also my head is pressing, they just go long with it, and it just becomes, that's now our second nature, as opposed to finding the right pass and playing through. And I don't expect it to look like Man City when we play, but I expect us to have some sort of purpose when we attack, instead of just trying to look for a long ball and then fight off second balls. And I think we've seen a lot of that under Clement in a different way. But again, it's the same thing. You go long to a striker, we push our midfield up. Is he trying to win it in the final third so that we can try and pen teams in? If that's the case, I think we should be scoring a lot more goals. But again, it's just the movement off the ball, Dave. It's not good enough. And this is a example of it.
Sorry, Dylan. That's Nadiri. Yeah, that's not Raskin. Raskin's between the 2 centre backs. But see when I think it's Jiggert's receiving the ball. See when he receives the ball, Sterling's already made his move forward. For me, Sterling needs to hold, and then Giga can play into him, and then can play a ball either into Nadiri or into Scott Wilson. But because Sterling's went up too early, then he's got no pass on. He has to just play it long.
But whoever the player is that's on the touchline here, whether that's still that pass can still be played, and then Scott Wilson can be played in. My point is here, you've got these three at the back. Like Raskin doesn't have to be there. You don't have to drop in to be the third centre back. There's no need for it. You're just inviting Celtic to push another man up and go and help the press. If Raskin's in centre mid, the player that's behind him is another type, and you've got Maida who's trying to do doggies between two centre backs. But because Raskin drops in there, it allows a 3v2 instead of a 2v1. Isn't a big deal, but we've only got two in the middle. So one's vacated the middle. We've only got one in the middle to try and find to link the play. I know what you're saying. Nadiri can drop in there, but you've only got one up front. So I just think I think what he's trying to do just isn't coming off properly. I thought it would have looked a lot better by now, but I think my view on it's still the same about we're trying to force long balls up to tall, powerful strikers because that's what we've got. Whereas I think that if you had to have Raskin in there, link with Diamandi, link with Mikey Moore, and closer contact with each other, like we have seen when we do break forward and the players are in close contact with each other, and it's good patterns of playing, you work out it. There's no reason we can't go and do that in the middle of the park. But I think you see it more in the final third.
I think there's a really interesting comment in the comments, funnily enough. So it's not great ball, but it's a percentage bet to get us further up the park. So fair enough. We weren't in a great shape at the start of the vid. And I think that almost aligns with what you're saying because nobody's really given him an option. Sterling's pushed up maybe a bit further, so it's cut that angle off. You haven't got anyone in the middle as an out ball for Giga. It's almost like that's what I've got left. Yeah. So let's get a shot. It might come off. It might not. I think in this case, it does in a sense because although they get the first contact, it goes out for a throw-in and we get the ball. So that's great. And, sometimes we'll pick up that second ball and it can drive an attack. But obviously, when you kind of long ball up the pitch, you do run that risk of just ceding possession.
And can I say,
Dave, first contact, or even if you do, and then they pick up the second ball, suddenly you're back on the defensive again.
Yeah, this is 8 minutes into an Old Firm game. Now, I understand it's frantic, etc., but this then set the tone for the rest of the game. If we're going to play like this 8 minutes in, I don't have a problem with playing long ball football. I don't have a problem with going direct. I don't have a problem with the game plan, but it can't be the only game plan. It can't be the first game plan either for me. There has to be some sort of plan B, but obviously I would rather that first. So there has to be some sort of connection between players that you can go. And if you're really under pressure, like we saw the last game when we were 2-0 up against Celtic, the first game, and it was when they started to press, we didn't have an answer for that because we couldn't play out it. All we were used to doing was hitting our strikers and winning second balls, and then that we could have got bet that game. So if we done that first and played through the press, then going for plan B, route one football, really it doesn't bother me. But again, I don't think that there's enough variety in our attacks.
Cool. Doug, what do you make of that? Do you think that's fair enough, or do you see it slightly differently at all?
Yeah, I sort of half disagree, but not entirely. I mean, the point with Raskin, I don't think he needs to drop as deep as he does, but I do think he needs to drop because I don't think that if there's a quick turnover, that would be a 2v2 for me rather than a 2v1 because you've got the second Celtic player pushing, and one of those mids would immediately start pushing as well. And I do, because the whole purpose of having Raskin drop is to allow the fullbacks to get as high as possible. And that's something, I mean, we've kind of done that for years with various players. Obviously, we did it with Lundstrom as well. He would drop back to allow Tab and Borna to push up. So, I mean, for me, that's a kind of tried and tested bit. But where I kind of do agree is I would maybe like him to be in line with the slightly deeper Celtic player rather than the one that's in between the two. Because, you've got a 2v1 there.
I would rather than be on this kick-off spot, run about that sort of big green line of the cut of the park in there on the ball receiving it as opposed to being in between the two of them. So yeah, I do agree with you there, Doug.
And I mean, in terms of the long ball, I was going to touch on what you said a minute ago about confidence and the the ability to play, or not the ability to play, sorry, having the mentality to be able to play a ball that's maybe is a bit risky and might go wrong, but have the mentality to be like, if it goes wrong, that's fine. I'll try something different next time, or I'll get it right next time. Which is something that we don't do enough. We don't play enough risky passes or more difficult passes at certain points, which I think the players need to have the confidence to do, because again, that's how you'll find those little extra spaces. Otherwise, so there needs to be a bit more of that. But this is also where I think sometimes our choice of centre backs is important. It's Giga that gets the ball here. If it's Fernandes, and certainly if it's Suter, I think there's a much bigger chance that he drives with the ball rather than making that pass, because he's got a good chunk of grass in front of him, Giga, and he could push up with that, which then would help to close down the problem with Sterling being further ahead, and also would allow all the rest of the players to move up a little bit and push Celtic back a bit. That's one thing I think that, obviously there's a lot of pros and cons people talk about with Suter, but one thing I do think he is good at is driving forward with the ball and progressing the ball like that. And that's something I think that we maybe might have been the better option here. I'm not upset with the pass. There's plenty of space in behind if he'd got the pass a bit better. But I think for me, I would have maybe liked him just to drive into that space a little more. That would have invited the sort of two Celtic players in front of him to maybe move in on him a little bit more. Then he can release Sterling, and you've kind of then bypassed those two. Nadiri, if I think it is there, maybe has then a little bit more space. And again, you kind of can progress it. I get like what Dylan was saying, and what I would think would be a more advantageous first option rather than the long ball.
Can I just add on to that? Can I just add on to that was Giga's first Old Firm since the cup game at Hampden. So, and he was a bag of nerves that game. So I can quite understand him being a bit like not wanting to dilly-dally on the ball and just playing it forward. Maybe he's been told that by Roll. I don't know.
Sorry guys, I'm not against that pass being played or that to see that it was wrong. I just think he should have been given more options in that scenario. By the players that are in front of him, but by Raskin dropping so deep, he's almost sort of forced to go and play that pass. I don't have a problem with it. It's just a point to make where I think we could be a lot more organised and have a better system on the ball as opposed to just sort of winging it.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty fair. Okay, let's move on then. So we also have some slides as well as the videos. I'll fire up the first one, and Arran, we'll come to you just to talk us through what you're highlighting here, really.
Aye, so this is Celtic's first goal in the 2-2 game. The top left, Hitate's got the ball on the wing, and I think it's Romans that's out, like stopping him from going in further. Then Skov Olsen have marked in a red box, and Colin McGregor and Nygren. And the white line is where the ball goes for Hitate. But just a couple of seconds after this frame, Skov Olsen goes closer to the touchline, the goal line, and that opens up that space, and Hitate plays the ball in, and then McGregor gets it and lays it off to Nygren, and then Nygren crosses it for Tierney to score. Now, the second slide, the bottom left one, that's the one on for the top left. I've highlighted Skov Olsen and Sterling. They should be charging that ball down. As soon as it goes into McGregor, they should be charging it down. And then the bottom right one, that's when Nygren's crossing it in. And they're still not really moved much to charge the ball down. I mean, John Suter, for example, he'd be charging that down, putting his body on the line for it. And then if I can address the back line as well, Suter's should be picking up Maeda, but I don't know if Fernandes doesn't trust Suter or what's going on there, because, I mean, we've seen in the cup game at Ibrox that when Suter came on, it was a shambles. but there's absolutely no leadership in that back line. Butland should be screaming at his defenders to pick up man for man, because Raskin's marking Tierney when McCowan's free at the back post. Fernandez is on no one. He's like halfway between Maeda and Tierney, and Suter's on absolutely no one. And then the top right slide, that's the McCowan chance that he should really score. Raskin, the second half of that game, was absolutely nowhere. He was just wandering about, doing whatever he wanted. No defensive discipline. And that's why he's a lot better as an attacking centre mid rather than a defensive one, because his defensive awareness is really bad. And yeah, they just go past him. That's Gassama beside Tenekte, I think it is. And the ball gets played to the other side and McCowan nearly scores from it. That was big problems for us in the second half, was just marking, defensive, and Raskin just going wherever he wants and having no defensive discipline.
So does that match what you saw, Dylan?
I think it's hard to, for me anyway. This is going to sound daft. It's hard for me to blame anyone in this scenario, because I think it not off at the back of a corner, and that's why Raskin's in the box defending like Kieran Tierney for a header, and Romans is out pushing the ball. It was like a second or third phase, which we don't really. It's not like they broke us down in that, and Romans was at right back, and Raskin was in the box. So, but I completely agree with the determination and desire to go out and close the ball down. Suter and Fernandez, etc., ball watching, but also think that they're in that zonal marking from the corner that we do. We tend to go sort of the hybrid of zonal and man marking, and I think they're sort of still in that. So, like Arran said, there's no really any leadership in the back line to say, right, look, the ball sort of broke out. We've got a couple of seconds here. There's no Hatate standing still, trying to organise it a wee bit. But I do find it hard, because I think you'd find players in this scenario that wouldn't be there had they had. I don't think Raskin would be at the back post there. It would be Romans sort of. You'd have Dujon out more, so you'd have Suter probably would close down McGregor. So it's hard to blame, but they could definitely be more switched on and have a wee bit more determination, desire, like I say, to go and close the ball down.
My biggest problem there, though, is that you see when Maeda's got it in the top left and Romans is like shadowing him. Skov-Olsen just needs to hold his position and not drop any deeper, and he cuts out that pass into McGregor and Nygren, and he just, because he drops deeper, it opens up that space. And obviously Nadiri there, he's following I don't know who that is, I don't know, but he's following whoever it is there. It's making a run around Hatate. He's going wide to make a run round, so it's making a 2v1 on Romans. So Nadiri's following him, but Skov-Olsen just needs to hold his position, and that pass is not on. He needs to cross it. Hatate himself.
I do agree with that. I think Sterling could sort of has to realise that danger as well, though. As he as a defender, he should be like sort of another couple of yards forward, closer. But again, it's tough to say. Skov-Olsen's no defender, and it comes to that point where they're attacking and he's just been caught sort of drop him. I don't really blame Skov-Olsen for him. He can do better, 100%. So can Romans not to allow the pass to get closer to the attack. So can Sterling to read it. So again, I think there's a lot of people to blame. It's similar. It's a theme that we see throughout the full team, I think, mate.
I think I've just seen the best summary ever in the comments. So too much wrong to even start listing with that one. You can talk about leadership, lots of players just fannying about there. That's it in a nutshell, isn't it?
Right.
You can't pin any one player. I know we've highlighted like Raskin, we've highlighted Skov-Olsen's positioning, but it is really just that catalogue of errors that led to that goal. Let's move on. So, Arran, Celtic first half, the second half. Talk us through this slide, what you think the tweaks were that kind of made things change so rapidly.
Aye, so the first half we were totally dominant, and that's because Celtic played 2 8s and a 6, and Nadiri was like kind of half marking McGregor, and they couldn't really get out. They had to keep playing it long. and that worked really well for us because obviously Nadiri's got a lot of energy and he can do that with the centre back and cover McGregor at the same time. The second half, Martin O'Neill puts on Hatate and drops him deeper instead of Oxlade-Chamberlain and puts Nygren at the 10. So then you've got Chukwueze and Raskin on Nygren, which is fine. But then you've got 4v2 where they're two centre-backs and they're 2 6s against our 2 strikers, which was a major problem because then the centre-backs can go wide, can split, and then if the striker follows them, then the 6s are open, and Hatate was kind of like roaming about, looking for space, and he was finding plenty of it. And if you go into the next, I don't know if anybody wants to come on that before we go to the next slide.
Jump on the next slide, and then we can do the two of them together, mate. So there's the next slide.
So this is the solution that I would have went with was Skov Olsen. I would have put Bayrami on at the second half as a sub, and he's quite good tactically for marking players. On the left is like you've got Olsen picking up McGregor, and then you've got Nadiri still doing the same. So you've got 3v4 instead of 4v2, and then you open the fullback. So whether it's Tierney or it's Araujo on the other side, you just give them the ball, and then you move over and press them and trap them on one side, where the only thing he's really got on the fullback on the right-hand side when he receives the ball, he's only really got up the line, or he's got a switch to the other wing or the other fullback, or if Maeda drops in, you can see there, if he drops in, he can play that pass in, but then the centre-back can either follow him in or just stay. And with that slide as well, when the ball goes into fullback, I'm wanting Raskin to jump onto McGregor when the winger jumps onto the fullback when he's got the ball. If you understand, everyone just shuffles across and you just trap them on one side, and then you kind of like use the touchline as an extra defender because they're trapped then. They can't go any further wide.
Well, that makes sense to me, mate. I'm surprised you didn't have Ant-Man or right back as one of your subs, to be fair, but other than that, makes total sense. For anyone wondering, it's a bit of a joke in our group chat. Aaron is extremely keen to see Danny Rule try Ant-Man at right back. Doug, I'll come to you on that. Do you, I guess question one, do you think these solutions would have been effective, or do you think there is more to it than just what's been highlighted here?
I think what he's talking about the second half there, in terms of closing down and trapping, that's all fine. Happy with that. But I actually think in terms of like talking about reacting to the change in their midfield, I actually think what Danny Rule did was fine. In terms of he takes Nadiri off and puts on Diamande, so he gives him the extra man in midfield and shuffles them a little bit to be more man to man. I thought that was a perfectly fine and correct enough move. Unfortunately, Diamande comes on and just doesn't play very well. And like Aaron says, Hatate's able to move about and get a lot of space, which, having made that move, he really shouldn't have been, because we should have been able to have had, it'd have been nice and simple. Olsen would stay out on the wing and able to come in, and we'd have had man for man in midfield with the three. But as I say, Diamande just doesn't play very well, and like we've mentioned already before, Raskin can be a little bit about the place as well. So to be honest, I just think Celtic just played better than us in the second half in that respect. And there's only so much, in terms of the tactical aspect. As I say, I don't think what Danny Rule did was incorrect. He can't, obviously he can make the most perfect tactical changes in the world, but if the players aren't up for it and don't fulfill the jobs they've been told to do, then there's only so much you can do about that until he decides, right, this player isn't good enough and I'll buy someone else.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the bigger problem. I don't like. I mean, that solution would work fine as well. But as I say, in terms of like what actually happened and what Danny Rose chose to do, I think it was more of a player issue than the tactical issue in that regard. Celtic came out in that second half and wanted it more, whereas we came out in that second half and thought we'd won and thought the game was won. And that was the biggest issue. But so that's my kind of thought on that. But I say I think the second half of that perfectly valid and a good idea, particularly as well if you're able to force and move the play to one side, and in particular if we did it specifically out on their left, I think that would also, in addition to having the players pushing in to trap, if you had more push and drop slightly to open up a bit of space, you then give Romans a great little avenue to burst into, and kind of like he's the sort of the tab of the day, if you like, with all the energy running up and down and doing all that stuff. So I think in addition to what Aaron's highlighted there, I'd have a wee arrow with Romans, a giant arrow with pushing Romans up to try and take advantage of a bit of the space that would open up on the opposite side of the pitch. Because as I say, if you could have Moore drop in a little, which he is wanting to do anyway, and Chikwani could drop back slightly to cover any gaps left by Romans.
Don't worry, Doug. We did all notice that you got a tactical wee tab mention in there as well, mate.
Gotta get one.
Let's have a look at the decision making then. So again, Aaron, if you just want to really quickly talk us through what you're highlighting on this slide. I know for myself, and again, I said it pre coming live, I was screaming at my TV, so I'm sure most folk probably feel similar. But just talk us through what you're showing here.
So this is just the cup game at Ibrox. The ball we had just won the ball back for a rare Celtic attack that day, and Bayrami has just played it into Gassama. Now the pass for me, just first time into Chermiti, because Chermiti is free there, and you can see Araujo, the player just above Chermiti. He's turning his head to look at Chermiti because he knows that if that ball's played, he's in trouble. And Gassama, what really frustrates me about him, whether he's on the left or the right, he likes to take a lot of touches on the ball and like try and square up the defender. Whereas you just need to play that first time into the space, and Chermiti's through, and maybe scores, maybe doesn't score. He's a hit or a miss sometimes. But that was just one aspect. The second game against Celtic, where our decision making, there was plenty of like bad decision making on the whole on the day that just like constricted our attacking moves.
I'd agree with that. And Dylan, I mean, you'll know I'm quite the kind of Rangers guy, have very strong views on these things. I find that a lot with Gassama. I think that is one area of his game that really does need to be developed, is his decision making. I think probably more often than not, I would suggest he gets into really promising positions and then makes the wrong decision, and it ends up petering out to nothing. Do you think that's fair, or am I just being the Rangers guy here?
No, Dave, I think you're spot on with that. To play devil's advocate, he also gets the ball in a similar position in the Hearts game. He goes on, he takes a man on, beats a man, and then puts it in for Chermiti. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar. So is that maybe playing on his mind from a couple of weeks before it? I think though, Dave, Gassama, you can see that he's so technically good on the ball, dribbling wise, and loves to take players on. When you've got those type of kids in the academy and they've been told they're the best of the best at every age level, their decision making is then not questioned, because they don't want to be putting the kid down and they want to bring him up. And so obviously he's not a young boy anymore, but he's never really had that. I'm speaking as if I know him personally, but I don't think he's ever really had that to go through. He's almost been encouraged to go and take players on all the time because he's so good at it, and that's his type of game. And I think now you're seeing that sort of catch up with him. Whereas if he'd maybe been through a different academy path, you would have maybe seen a different player who can do both. for instance, Scott Olsen doesn't really take players on, but he'll play that pass all day long. So I think it's sort of obviously the environment that they're coached and grew up in as well that comes in to play with it a lot. But I do agree with you, when Gassama takes a man on, he loves to cut in, take a man on, and then he's got him beat, and the boy's almost on the floor, and then he cuts back, and he's just back into the same problem he had. And I think that's a really bad trait to have, where I think if you just almost always remember Jermaine Defoe talking about when he's striking the ball, just touch and hit. Don't try and work that perfect angle. Just touch and hit. It'll go through legs. It'll come off players. And I think with Gassama, sometimes you just has to get that into his mind. Just touch it by the player and go and deliver it across or have your shot. There's no denying that he's quick. He's an outlet. He's got a good strike of the ball on him. But again, I think his decision making lets him down all the time. When you look at how Mikey Moore gets you up the park compared to Gassama, Mikey Moore's head and shoulders above him. So. But no, I think that's fair, isn't it?
Fair enough. And we've got one more for you just before we wrap it up. So, Aaron, we're now looking at the St Mirren game. Talk us through this one, what you saw differently in this game to the two Celtic games.
So this is the tweaks that Roll had made. Obviously, he changed, he put Tav at right back, and any other changes from the Celtic game. Gassama on the right wing instead of Skov Olsen. And obviously Tav, you would love him 5 years ago to do what the job that Romans does on the left, just up and down the wing all day. But we know that he's getting on a bit and doesn't have the energy to do that, and he can get caught out a lot than what he used to. So he was playing, and this is in the first half, he was playing inverted. He would go into midfield. Roskin would be freed up to go forward. And then sometimes Roskin would be on the inside, like coming in with Moore coming in. So they would be the two behind the strikers. And Gassama would be holding the width. But sometimes Gassama would rotate with Roskin, and Gassama would be on the inside and Roskin would be on the wing. Like we saw for his cross for Roman's goal at St Mirren. But I think it's just a case of, ideally, what Roll would want is an attacking right back that can go up the wing, and then you can have like a Bayrami or a Skov Olsen on the right that's probably more comfortable playing inside. Because, I mean, Bayrami's a 10, that's his natural position, and Skov Olsen's left-footed, so you kind of want them coming inside, like Moore does on the left. Really, you're wanting it symmetrical on both sides, but we don't really have that. We'll have Dujon Sterling on the right, who's good, but he's injury prone, and he's a bit more defensive than he is attacking. And Tavernier's just too old, unfortunately. But if it was a Tava 5 years ago, it'd be perfect for the way we play, because you can have both your fullbacks going forward, holding the width, while all your other players can like control the centre of the pitch, kind of thing. But I just thought it was interesting what he was doing. But he went to the second half, and he kind of just like went back to normal, and Tav was kind of holding the width more, and he went more conservative, like hold the 1-0, which I didn't like. But yeah, I don't know. It's just where the squad is at the moment. We're just having to make do with what we have.
So Doug, I'm going to come with you on that one, because your mum's mentioned quite a bit there. I understand you're probably Googling running stats right now as we speak, but do you think that it is probably fair that, given his advance in years, slight decline, shall we say, in energy levels, etc., do you think it's sensible that we try and find solutions like this? Because one thing I have noticed on the right is, as much as people knock James Tavernier, and trust me, he's got his faults, I'm the first to complain about him at times, but he is still by far and away our most dangerous player creatively, I would suggest, on the right-hand side.
Yeah, and it's been part of our problem for a while. I think we've had this really annoying habit of getting some players in that I still think that, regardless of age, Tavernier is arguably our technically best player, by which I mean, just his ability, his technical ability on the ball, passing, crossing, that kind of thing. Scott Wilson is probably in that as well, but we're not really seeing it from him. And Moore is certainly on that pathway. But Tavernier remains certainly up in the sort of top 3, top 5 of our most technical players. And one of the really frustrating things is we have brought in players that are at that level, I think. For example, Cherney was that level. I think Sema was around about that level as well. But we never seem to be able to get them all at the same time. Which if we did, we'd probably have done a bit better.
Lethal, wouldn't we?
Exactly. And I think, like, for example, in the cup final, I think, he doesn't bring on Tab until the extra time. And you just immediately saw all of a sudden you were getting more accurate crosses from deep and from wide. He puts it on a plate for Trimity within about 4 minutes. We've got the ball in the net another 4 minutes later, albeit but via hand. And as I say, particularly now that we've got a bigger team, having people that have that ability to throw in more accurate balls would be great. So that's something we need to find more of in the summer. I think what Aaron said is bang on in terms of Roll is trying to find solutions with the players that he's got available to him. Because the players that we have right now aren't 100% ideally suited to the way that Roll wants to play, I think. The one thing I disagree with slightly on that diagram is I would have had Gassama's arrow pointing inwards as well, because I think that's what Roll wants from the sort of wide players. He doesn't actually necessarily want them to be wide players. He wants them to come in and cut in to be effective. Like Moore does it perfectly from his side. And I think that's why sometimes he goes with Gassama on the right, despite the fact that it seems obvious that he's so bad on that side. All his goals have come from the left-hand side. And, he just seems to be kind of anonymous, because I feel like he's hoping that Gassama will cut in and then be able to make inducements of him. But I'm not 100% sure if he's got the football brain yet to be effective from that position, because he kind of cuts in but then doesn't seem to really do much. And you've got obviously Tav coming in, filling sort of Raskin's spot, and then Raskin was spending, particularly in the first half, a lot of time as the wide kind of player, and that's where we got the goal from. Raskin being out and swinging. And again, I think someone touched on it earlier. For me, that was a more effective use of Raskin, making him a more attacking player and doing that. So he's trying to find solutions with what he's got, and I don't think there's a problem with. Aaron talked about being symmetrical. That is great, but I don't think there's any problem with being asymmetrical either, as long as what you're doing on either side works. And as I say, right now, with Scott Wilson not in form and Gassama seemingly incapable of being as effective on the right as he is on the left, it's leaving this void in that sort of attacking wing area where we're just not getting enough effective play. I do think that Scott Wilson still has the potential to push on, because he has shown moments, like Aaron touched on a couple of his assists that he made earlier, in games. So he has the ability to fix that problem. We need to get more out of him. And until we do, as I say, I think we'll still struggle about down the right, because like people have said, Tav is getting on, and not only in terms of age, but just the amount of football that man has played. As I say, an average of 51 point something games per season for 10 years. That will take it out the legs. So, that's a perfectly valid. I'm not. People think I'm this all never denying. No, what's the word? Never allowing for criticisms of Tav. I do agree. Tav is older. He's not as quick as he used to be. He's not able to get up and down as much. All of that is true. And so again, you need people with the energy and the things around him if Tav's going to be on the pitch to account for that. And again, if you've got someone on that upper right that isn't quite firing on all cylinders, it's going to cause your right side to be a little bit less effective.
I think that's a really interesting point on Olsen as well. We've had this debate in the group chat multiple times already. I think for me, right, I'm not saying he's rubbish. That would be churlish, right? He's not rubbish. But the fact is, if we sign this guy, we're looking at paying £10 million. Now, rightly or wrongly, you can talk about other leagues all you want. The fact is, in Scotland, that is a significant wedge of cash. And for 10 million, you're expecting a game changer, not someone that's all right. I think that's been a really interesting pod, guys. Thank you
Dave,
all
just
for
quickly
joining me.
before you wrap up, you see Scott Wilson.
Yep.
You see how he's like mid-20s, whatever. You see who he reminds me of? Gareth Bale when he pucked it in at Real Madrid.
Right, that's plenty, mate. That's plenty.
No, I'm not meaning. I'm not meaning talent.
I understand the point.
I'm not meaning talent. I'm meaning he downed tools.
Yeah.
He just totally downed tools, and his football career just went to waste.
Wow. Third goal, so the rumours go, did Mr. Bale. But anywho, thanks everyone that has tuned in. Appreciate you taking the time to watch. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen and heard tonight. Thanks again, Doug, for the effort put into those slides. If you have liked what you've seen, please do like and subscribe to the channel. As I mentioned at the top, the pod is brought to you by the Bluebells Bar in Lanzarote, Good Rangers pub. Various guys from the channel have been there and been well looked after, so I'd thoroughly recommend it. For now, every night's a Rangers Journal.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.